to aid damaging them. This way you're protecting them. And let me just show you some of the external pockets on these. On this one I've got the sling, again a landing net in there, throwing stick, and you can put your bank sticks in there also. They're just wonderful bits of kit. There's also a 13-foot version in the range now, so Danny will be well made up. You can get his brand new 13-foot Infinity DFs in there also. In my opinion, these are some of the best rod padded sleeves on the market. Right, time for some tracker luggage. Here I've got the barrow bag. I'm going to take you through it and show you exactly how much space there is and also a few new bits that they've got in the range. So firstly, the new bits, like I said, these are the lovely new bits bags that they've got. Have a look at that lovely little design feature with the nets. If I open them up, you can fit odds and sods in there. They're perfect. And I tell you what, if you're going for a short session, for a spot of stalking, they've got the handles on there, or you can just drop them in a bucket and they're perfect. You know, you can carry them around, very portable. That's the small one. And here we've got the larger bits bag, a real array of different tackle in there for those of you who want to carry a lot of gear. It will all fit in there lovely. And this barrow bag's got a lot of space, and they do recommend that everything's modular, so you can put these bits bags in the side pockets. I prefer to put all my other tackle items in there. I've got my funnel web in this little pocket at the front, my stows, my binoculars, they all fit in this one. In the side one, I've got hook baits, all different sizes, shapes and colours. And in the back, my Delko cases, for when I'm not using them, go in there. Crusher fits in there perfect. I've got mainline dips, it all goes in there. I'm as messy as they get. And moving over to the cookware bag, have a look at this. I've got a spare canister in there. I've got my tracker stove with another canister already loaded onto it. And then some of the actual tracker cookware that they do, for those of you who like to make a bit of grub on the bank. All in all, a lovely bit of luggage that's going to last you a very long time.
And there he is, 20 pounds of glorious mirror carp, nailed on an IQD rig. So we're going to get him back and show you exactly how to tie it. The D-rig is a classic carp rig. It's been used for years and years. Gets its name from that fella on the back of the hook, the D that we've created for the bait to slide back and forth. And this is sort of a modern day version of that. This is done with fluorocarbon. This is the IQ2 material in 15 pounds breaking strain. And normally you'd fish a D-rig as a pop-up. I'm not doing it in this case. I'm fishing it as a slow sinking bottom bait, and that is for a very good reason. Mainly because the fish are going to be able to suck that in, the hook can catch hold, and then the bait will slide back out of the way. Yeah, so it's not an anti-eject rig. People think that goes in, it'll never come back out again. I don't believe that at all. But if the hook finds purchase, then it tries to eject everything, the bait will continue to slide backwards and forwards on there. The other thing I really like about it is the way this will sit on the bottom. The hook will sit flat and the bait will sit just above it, like so. And what that basically does is it hides the hook. The bait is almost sitting on top of the hook, but because we've got that movement, as soon as it goes into the fish's mouth and goes to catch hold, the bait gets out of the way, the hook turns and you've got him. And then the material, particularly important for when I'm fishing at long range, that IQ2 in 15 pound is a reasonably stiff material, so it hardly ever tangles. If the rig's tangled, you're never going to get a bite, so that's very, very important in this range. So to talk to you about how to tie it, I start off by tying the top of the D there. So I'm basically tying my favourite whipping knot, make a big loop underneath the hook, but this time you have the hook turn around the other way, so the eye's facing out rather than the point facing out. Big loop underneath the hook, round once, round again with the front of the loop, but this time going down the hook, and just whip 4 or 5 times, pull the short tag end to tie it all, and then you've basically got that knot tied on with a great big length of line coming off the hook. Then you put your micro rig swivel on. That's very important. I'll explain that why in a minute. That gets slid on, and then I tie a simple knotless knot around the eye of the hook, and then that basically traps everything and forms our D. And you can have that D nice and tight to the hook, or you can have quite a big D like I've got there, which gives you a fair bit of movement. And I still, even with this rig, I still want a bit of separation, a bit of space between the bait and the hook, just so the hook can catch hold. And then moving down the hook link, that little fella there, I've got a small sinker, just with a bit of dark matter putty around it, and that's just to sink everything down on the bottom, make sure it's all lying flat. Now this fluorocarbon's very heavy, so it will sink on its own accord, but because it's quite stiff, if you've got something on the bottom and there's no putty, it can sit up like that. So by having a bit of putty, you're just guaranteeing that bit at the end is sat down on the bottom away from the fish. And of course, because it is fluorocarbon, it's very, very difficult for the fish to see. And then moving down to the other end of the hook link, I've got a simple 4-turn half blood knot there. The knot you used when you first started going fishing, very, very simple, through the link loop, around the hook link 4 times, back through the loop. And before you pull it tight, wet it and pull the tag end tight first. And that creates a little bit of space. So when you put your rig puller in there and pull it down, it doesn't kink the hook link and you get a perfect knot on there. And then moving back up to the attachment of the bait, that's really important. As I said, we've got a micro ring swivel on there. And what that basically does is allows the bait to spin without having to spin the hook. So the hook can turn, you see that? The hook can turn without the bait having to turn. So it turns and catches hold that little bit quicker, that little bit more aggressively. And to attach that bait, all I've done is gone through the eye of that micro rig swivel just with a bit of floss. And then I've gone through the bait with a baiting needle, pulled the floss back through, and then I've just done a succession of granny knots over the top of a hair stop to hold it in place, and then just burned it with a lighter. And there you go, we've got it exactly the right length. So just the bottom eye of that swivel's poking out the bottom of the bait, and that's going to go in the mouth easily and turn really easily. That's so important. Now I'll steam the whole lot to get it perfectly straight. As you can see, that's lovely and straight there. And then once that's done, I'll retain it in my rig safe. And this is really good for keeping the hook link perfectly straight in between fishing. So just hook that up there, put our little pin in. And if you're going to do them in advance, you don't even have to steam them with that, because they're under tension. That's holding that hook link perfectly straight the whole time. When you take it off, the hook link's perfectly straight. And if it kinks when you're fishing, then you can either put it back in there for a little while or steam it over the kettle again, and it'll be perfectly straight. So when it hits the bottom, it all lays out nice and flat. The fish sucks in the bait, the hook link's already straight, everything works properly, and bang, you've got him. So that's my version of the IQD rig. If you're a boilie angler, get on it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we were talking about drop tail, and we thought the fish I caught at 74 was drop tail. We then realised it was fudgies, and by some crazy coincidence, I now have drop tail in the net. Jake has done an expert job of netting it for us, came on the left-hand rod on that all-important IQD rig. Absolutely nailed he was. And the cog system had dumped the lead as well, so textbook fight, fought like an absolute demon, and didn't weed me up fortunately this time. And there he is. Last time out at 68 pounds, so it could be another new 70. We've transferred it, sort of taken the net apart, slid it into the sling as always, and we're going to lift it out of the water in the sling. Absolutely important to do that. And then if we just check his fins before we pick him up, if you just want to take the tension there, Jake, just go up a little bit further. If his fin is bent back forwards and lift him up, you can break it off. So you want it flat against his body. So we just find his massive head down there. And that fin's fine, nice and flat against his body. And then this one, the same, flat against his body. Right, we can take the strain now, matey. Oh, up we come. Oh, that's heavy. Okay, let's have a look at the prize. I've definitely caught you before, my lovely. Yeah,
it's definitely 100%.
Top of the tail.
Drop tail on the top.
Oh, yeah.
Slip this mesh away.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
No, not yet. Oh, God, mate, that's angry. Whoa. What a carp.
67.5.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Sure?
Yep.
Come on! Get in. What a creature. Amazing. Right. There he is. Drop tail, 67.5 pounds. Another one on the IQD rig. Oh, size 4 capture curve. And that banoffee, oh. Come on, fish. Oh. And that all-important banoffee hook bait. What a creature. Oh, that is big. get on the IQ.
My friend. Yeah. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. This better not come off. A morning bite on my birthday. Please, please be a gigantic big one. It doesn't feel a bad fish, but it's so hard to tell until they come in close, and then depending on the amount that they're moving, you start to work out whether it's a cheese or not, or a grand fromage, the big cheese, we like to call it. And this one feels heavy again. And the size of the fish off the baited areas seems to be getting bigger. It's that old feeding pyramid. The bait keeps going on the same spot. They're gorging themselves on new grange and cell. And the hook bait tipped with our IB maize. I've got a cell hook bait on this one, tipped with a bit of IB maize. Once again on the end trap soft. Choddy hook, hybrid leg clip, 4 ounce swivel distance. The dark matter tubing. And then subline as my main line, which is absolutely superb. Not only does it sink like a brick, it casts like a dream, and hopefully this won't give me any trouble. It's hard to work out what this is. You never know. It could just be a 20 pounder, a 30 pounder, or it could even be an 80 pounder. But I don't think it's as big as some of the ones that we're catching. Oh yeah, there's a 40 pounder, I reckon. I've got it, mate, I've got it. Trying to take me under my own boat. Here we go. Oh, it wasn't the monster we thought. He's got smaller and smaller as I played him. Well, the commons seem to be loving this spot. This is a 35 pounder, another stunner from Gigantica. And I tell you what, the bite was really twitchy, and I doubt you would have registered it on anything but a Delkim. Let's have a look at the Delkim range right now. I've been a Delkim fanatic now for over 15 years, and I still shudder when I see people using roller alarms. Now, one of the main reasons I say that is because Delkim has a main signature feature, which is the vibration system. And why that's better than a roller buzzer is quite simple, really. You get a lot of nightmare stories of people when they've woken up using a roller buzzer, they've had a take and it's not even registered. The line can sometimes flick to one side of the roller. On other occasions, the actual line can freeze in the roller buzzer in extreme conditions. That will never happen with a Delkim. The vibration system is adjustable, so you can have it super sensitive or almost no sensitivity whatsoever. And that's got its uses for different conditions. So let's have a look at them. So the Delkim has a plus and minus sensitivity setting. Now, in most situations in the UK, or where I'm fishing France and I'm sort of carp fishing for big carp, I prefer to have it on the plus setting. I normally have it on plus and either 2 or 3. Now that makes the alarm quite sensitive. Let me just show you now. I'm just barely moving it. That's like probably a mil of movement on the line, and I had a couple of bleeps there, and that's vital for me. You know, if I'm fishing for big carp, if I'm fishing at long range, the last thing I want to do is be in a situation where the carp are getting away with it, or I'm getting line bites and I'm not actually getting any registration back at the alarm end. And with this plus and minus sensitivity, you can control what feeds back to the bank. If I move this from plus to minus and give you an idea of the change in sensitivity. Now, I've got it on 0 sensitivity. That's almost no sensitivity. I've had to almost pull line off the reel to get a bleep. And that's why when you're fishing rivers or flowing water and places where you're going to get a lot of sort of movement, things hitting the line, that's when the minus sensitivity comes into its own. And if you get a full-blooded run, you're going to get registration. But for sort of big carp situations, I would always recommend that you go on the plus setting and either put it on 1 or 2, but maybe even 3, okay? That's very important. Now, another time that I'd put it on minus sensitivity is when I'm fishing under the rod tops. Now, if fish are sort of coming in close and they're touching the line and the alarm head's on loud, the last thing you want is that alarm to keep beeping and potentially spook fish away. So my recommendation would be to put it on the minus setting and then maybe sensitivity 2 or 3. Now, that would be more than sensitive enough to give you a sort of good screamer when it goes, but also you're likely to get the odd line bite to let you know fish are in the area. And also, more importantly, if fish have got away with it and have blown your rig out, you're likely to still get a decent registration then. So that's how I'd use them. Sensitivity that you can control from the maximum possible to the minimum to suit all fishing situations. That leads us on nicely to the RS Pro receiver. Now here I've got the TXI Plus alarm, which is the top of the range Delkim available, and it's paired perfectly with the RX Pro. Now in the top right hand corner, you've got the letters L and D. Now the L stands for local, and that means you've got up to 50 meters of range from your rods. So generally, if you're fishing on your rods and you're close to the tips, then keep them on local setting, and also that maintains the battery life the best. Moving on to the D, that stands for distance, and you've actually got up to 200 meters of range on the receiver. Quite unbelievable, really. So if a mate's likely to be that far away, then you know you've got the security of getting perfect range back on the receiver head. And talking about the LEDs, you can literally tune in loads and loads. I couldn't even tell you the number, but it's a lot of alarms that can go onto this awesome tiny bit of kit that does so much. Well, there you go, a brief look at the Delkim alarm range. There's also an EV model in the Delkim portfolio, which is slightly less expensive. However, just to reiterate, this sensitivity factor of a Delkim is vital. The vibration system really sets it apart from any other alarm on the market. And I'd seriously tell you now, do not invest in a roller buzzer. These are the ones that I would use above anything else in all conditions. There is nothing quite like a Delkim. Next stop, Delko Accessories. The Delkim boys back in the office have been busy working on some brand new accessories for 2012, and here's one of the latest. This is called the Black Box, and it's a tailor-made transportation tool for your prized Delkims. Let me open it up. It's worth pointing out that this is actually a working sample, so the finished one will have the slots cut out perfectly for the job. However, you're going to be able to fit in 4 Delkims, and if you like, you can have the hard cases left on them and also the D-locks. And there, a nice little slot for the RX Pro receiver also. Included in the inside is a little waterproof case, so you can put your Delkim accessories in there, such as your night lights, your duo carbs. It'll all fit in there, and it can be zipped up and taken to a lake, safe in the knowledge that they're never going to get damaged. It's a lovely hard case, a brilliant new piece of kit from Delkim. And let's move on to some of the other accessories, because they've now been building a real full system, the Delkim boys. Firstly, the snag ears. I think these are absolutely beautiful. The way they've made them, the way it just fits onto the battery sort of door on the back. It comes complete with its own battery door. You just take the other one off, slide the new one on, screw it in, and you're ready to go. And they just pop out. So when you finish fishing, take them off and they'll go in the case perfectly. And then working our way down here onto this Delkim sticker with the Korda logo. We get a lot of questions about these particular stickers. These were just a limited run done for Team Korda, and unfortunately they're not readily available. And moving on to the duo carb, this is a really clever bit of kit that Del Ramang has sort of been the brainchild of. What it does is it basically transforms your sort of nightlight bobbin into a swinger, and that serves 2 purposes. Here I've got it on a slack line, and there's no chance of it sort of moving around in the wind, because that sort of duo carb keeps the stability. And also when you get fast takes on a slack line, the last thing you want to do is have that sort of bobbin swing round the line and get tangled up. That stops that happening also. Just pulls up nicely, and you'll notice that very, very tighty light on the night light. I absolutely love it. You can have them matching your alarm colour or have it a different colour, whatever suits your fishing, and that just basically plugs in to the little socket underneath the Delkim, and any beep registered on the alarm is registered on the night light. And in effect, it's like a very, very clever isotope, and they just hang there beautifully. And if you sort of bring up the little sort of standing lights on there, if I keep that down for sort of 3 pips, or 4 pips, 2, 3, 4, get some little lights come up, and what that means, I've got a constant, there'll be a constant light in here as well, so that really is like an isotope. Excellent, clever idea. And then let's move on to some of the other things in the range. They've got the D-lock now, and that means you can just detach the alarm from the bank stick and not have to keep screwing it in and out. Everything can sit there, and you can put your alarm away safely and put the bank sticks into the rod bag. And here's another new product that Delkim have just released. These are the D-stack weights that screw into the bottom of the night light. Again, you can have 1 on, 2 on, or even 3 or 4. It depends whatever suits the fishing situation. And they'll also work with some of the other bite indicators out there on the market, as long as the threads match. Overall, Delkim continue to work on a system that all works in tandem. They've also released some clothing. Here's the rather large and too many sizes too big for me polo shirt. There's also a fleece hat and a baseball cap. As always, Delkim continue to set new benchmarks in bite indication.
And there we have it, one absolutely stunning common carp from Gigantica. 3rd fish of the session, and I'm actually only fishing at night, working in the day, so I'm baiting up in the mornings, leaving the lines out, letting the fish have a free food, and then coming back and then catching stunning fish like this. So what we're going to do now is just run through the rigs what I'm catching them on.
Well, while we've been helping ourselves to loads of Gigantica carp, this young man has come over to France to help us out, running around, working his socks off, but at night he's been getting them rods out and he's been doing the business. And Jake, I think it's only fair that we look at your rig. So Jacob, take us through it, mate. What we got there, talk about the hook bait and the setup and why you've chosen this particular one.
Well, from the start is a homemade banoffee pop up, and we can see Dan's been having great success on them. And then just a trimmed down boilie just to balance it so it critically goes down really slow and takes the weight of the hook.
Okay.
Moving down, you've got micro rig ring just to have that bit of like the blowback and
so the movement there, so that captor hook is able to drop down when the fish move, get it in their mouth. That hook will hopefully move forward and drop down. Okay, and then let's talk about the actual hook and the shrink tube that you've got there. Why have you chosen that?
Well, I've got a size 6 captor curve.
Okay.
And then with
hence the little green cap.
Yeah. I do take it off before I put it in. Don't worry.
Yeah, make sure you do that.
And then with the shrink tube, I've got it following the eye.
Okay.
So it follows the curve and it's not too.
And that the idea is that sort of acts as a little ridge to block that hook in place, yeah?
Yeah, and just grabs hold. I mean, the hook holds I've been getting, because it's barbless hooks.
Yeah.
Each one's been absolutely nailed, so.
Brilliant. And then working down, I can see you've got some Supernatural here.
Yep.
And then you're joining it to the fluorocarbon. What's the breaking strain of the Supernatural?
It's £18.
Okay. And the knot itself?
It's the Albrine knot.
Okay, so that's really easy to do, isn't it?
Yep, just loop it over, round a few times, back through, and it holds nice and strong.
Yep, make sure at home that you always go back through the same way as you came through at the start of the knot, okay? So going up to the lead system, I can see here you've got the hybrid lead clip with the dark matter tubing. Why have you gone for a lead clip?
Basically because where I'm fishing, I've got weed to the right and snags to the left.
Yep.
So I'm fishing in between, and I want the lead to come off every single time, because I always fish heavy leads as well.
Yeah.
So every time I get a bite, I want the lead to come off. And
by the lead coming off, the fish are going to move up in the water, and Jake's in direct contact with the fish. And Jake, it's proven really fruitful for you. Have you enjoyed yourself?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah. Don't really want to leave, to be honest.
Well, there you go. A great little setup that's caught Jake plenty of carp on this trip. Try it back at home and you'll be catching loads of carp.
How about that for a stunning creature? Nailed on the rig that I've just shown you. We'll slip it back and hopefully there's more to come.
It's difficult to single out one line from the Corda range that I love the most, but I've got to say for the last 5 years I've been using the Contour. We tested it for 3 years before its release and I've put it through so many different situations and it never let me down. People wonder, why do you just bring it out in 12 pound? Well, when we tested it for so long, and that was the best line, it was great for casting, and most fluorocarbons aren't great for casting. They're not very supple, but this one, it sinks like a brick, it's very abrasion resistant and nearly invisible. And when you're fishing pressured lakes in the UK and those carp are sort of coming under your rod tips, the last thing you want to do is spook them out of your swim. And with a fluorocarbon, you know, it's all draping down, sunk into the lake bed, and you're not spooking any carp in the area. And you also know when you hook into that carp of your dreams, it's not going to let you down. Even at 12 pound breaking strain, I've put it through loads of different situations where fish have taken me in reed beds, through lily pads, and I've just pulled them straight back out, and there hasn't even been a chink in the Contour's armour.
The line I've used almost exclusively for the last 5 or 6 years is Contour. We field tested it for 4 years before we even brought it out, and during that period I've had loads of big fish from the UK on it, loads of English 40s. I've fished at 120 yards at Wenton Country Park. I've fished right under my feet as well in really weedy conditions, and it always stands up to the job. I've caught fish over 70 pounds on it in France and fish from various waters over 50 pounds as well, and it just never lets me down. The reason I love it so much is because it sinks like a stone. It's on the bottom virtually straight away from the rod tip all the way out to where you're fishing. I always fish it super slack so the fish can come in, feed in the area, not come into contact with the lines, and it definitely gets me more bites. And it is super durable. Only comes in 033, which is 12 pound, but that is all you need. I've had epic battles with really big fish going down the back of bars in the UK, pulling them back up through weed beds, getting them in every time. And you run your fingers down the line and there's no nicks or anything in it, so it lasts a lot longer than normal mono. Like all fluorocarbons, it's much harder to see the normal mono in the water, but my tip for extended use is keep it clean. So wind it back through an odourless baby wipe or a thinking angler's line cleaner, take all the grit off it, and it will last a very long time. It is more wiry than normal mono, so it doesn't cast quite as far. I use this stuff for my fishing up to 100 yards, but with pinpoint accuracy. And put it on a big spooled reel, something like a Daiwa wing cast or a Daiwa Basia. It'll absolutely fly off of those, and it'll cope with probably 90% of normal fishing situations. It does cost more than normal mono, but I think it's worth every penny.
£15 brown subline has to be my personal favourite. I use it for all situations up to 120 yards. My top tip would be to change this when I'm fishing in clearer water where the green comes into its own. I'll use this when I'm casting even over 120 metres, and in that situation I would use the £10 like I did at Gigantica last year and still manage to land impressive fish of 47 and 46 pounds. Get on it. Right, when on holiday venues like this, imagine 12 anglers all around the lake, all using free rods, all got semi-tight lines. Fish in these waters are always worried, always on the move, always trying to stay away from anglers. So in this sort of situation, all I'm trying to do is trying to keep my line down, and by paying out a bit of slack once you sunk the line, and before you put the bobbin on, just pay out a little bit more until it stops pulling up, and as soon as you know it stops pulling up, then you know it's down, out the way. In this sort of murky water, brown subline is my first choice, £15, that'll allow for the weed, any snags that I might encounter. I'm not casting too far, 0.4 diameter, bulletproof. If I was fishing clearer water, I'd opt for the green myself. As for these stow indicators, I've taken the weights off the bottom here, and the reason I've done that is because I don't want to pull the line up off the bottom. I still want to have a bobbin on to get indication, and by these stow indicators having this little clip on the side, that allows me just to fish them on the tilt like that, very minimal tension on the line, allowing it to stay down. Absolutely perfect. When fishing like that, if you have your Delkim set too sensitive, you often see this, people on the +6. Me personally, I like it sort of plus on the naught, and that'll roughly ½ inch before you get a bleep. That's enough. If it was a bit windy and there was a lot of like weed drifting into my lines, then I would go on to the negative. There's nothing worse than getting false bleeps keeping you awake all night. Bleeps you don't need to know about. Right, that's my top tip for these pressured holiday venues. Keep your line slack and your bobbins light. Doesn't matter how big they are when they look like this. 20 pounds of beautiful mirror carp from Sky Lake. This one was taken my favourite braided presentation, incorporating cell bottom bait and a wide gape hook. I'll show you that in a minute.
We're going to talk rigs now with Mr. Peck, and what I can see him holding there is simplistic, I think is the best way to describe it. You're known for using very simple tactics. you catch a lot of big fish, so explain to us why you're using what you're using and what each thing does on the rig.
Okay, well basically I like to keep things as minimal as possible, so less things to go wrong.
Right.
What I'm using is an 18mm bottom bait, and when I'm using 18mm bottom baits I like to use braided hook links, give it very natural movement, and the weight of an 18mm bottom bait will help prevent tangles.
Right, okay. So that's just supernatural, straight through?
Straight through.
Right, and tied on the hook with knotless knot?
Knotless knot, tied down level with the point, and the bait I always like to just brush off the bottom of the bend, if you can see there.
Right, and why is that?
I've just found that I don't get hook pulls like that.
Right, okay. So any shorter or longer can cause a hook pull for you?
Yeah, I've experienced that, yeah.
Right, okay. And then moving down?
Moving down.
Just onto the lead system?
Yeah, I've got a quick link with a figure of 8 loop knot. I'd use that only in the 25, I wouldn't do that in the 18.
And why is that?
Because you get reduced strength with a figure of 8 loop knot.
Right, okay.
If you're going to use the 18, you'll probably go for a link loop, you know, because you've got the added strength.
So you tie grinner or something like that to the link loop to increase the breaking strain of the hook link?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a point worth making actually, because we do lots of breaking strain tests at work, and if you do a figure of 8 loop in braid, it does reduce the breaking strain. If it goes from 25 pound down to 19, doesn't really matter, does it?
No, no.
But if you're going 18 down to 14 or 13,
Yeah.
then you could be experiencing problems. And then just a hybrid lead clip there, just with a swivel lead on.
Yep.
Just nice and simple. Do you use swivel leads more than inlines or not?
I've been tending to in recent times, because everyone wants you to use on their fisheries like a system that drops the lead, and it's the easiest way and the best way, really, to be honest. That comes off pretty much on the take, especially with a big lead.
Right, okay, so if I hold that and then you pull against it, we can show everybody that's how easily it comes off.
Yeah, and that way that could be plugged in the bottom, and literally up off the bottom, shake its head, fish comes up.
Right, okay, cool. Let's put that back on there so everyone can see the full thing set up. The other thing I noticed you've got on is the new dark matter heavy tubing. How are you getting on with that?
Absolutely love it.
Right.
I've been using tubing more in recent years than lead core, because I used to use lead core avidly, you know, I wouldn't cast out without it. But I wondered whether it caught me more fish, or I was just using it for the sake of doing it. And tubing definitely prevents tangles more than with braid.
Yeah.
It definitely prevents tangles more.
And that stuff especially, because it's so heavy, it just seems to keep the two apart, doesn't it?
Definitely, definitely.
Right.
And yeah, the way it lays over stuff, it's just absolutely beautiful. Whatever it's, yeah.
Yeah, it just picks up the contours of the bottom and.
Yeah.
Right. And if you were going to use a pop-up, what of that would you change?
Basically, pop-ups are lighter, so the braid is more prone to tangling with a pop-up. In this situation, I'm using a bag, so you could get away with it. A bag straight on the braid wouldn't matter. You could do the pop-up. But if I was casting it out as a single hook bait,
because the hook bait's lighter, then you get more chance of a tangle.
You get no separation between bait and lead during flight.
Right.
It's more prone to frap up and wrap round itself.
Right. So what would you use then as a pop-up?
I've been using N-trap in recent times since it came out. I use it straight through, knotless knotted to the hook, boilie a little bit tighter to the hook for the pop-up. And I've got soft hair that's stripped, but then I would just make a little break about 1 inch down from the eye of the hook, and just put a split shot on, give it a 5mm gap, so the 5mm braid showing, and that just allows the hook bait to sit up straight.
Right.
And a little crafty tip, just run your finger into the inner edge of it.
Just curve the inside.
Just curve it, yeah, and there's no need for shrink tube when you do that. And it sits there, it looks just like that. It's like lovely.
Wicked. Well, simple stuff, but it catches a lot of big fish.
Here's the proof of the pudding. A lovely 35-pound common from Sky Lake, taken on the rig I've just shown you. Use this rig anywhere and you can catch fish like this.
Daryl, you've been doing the tutorials, or call tutorials as we call them now, for the last, for this summer?
Yeah, since about May time.
Right, okay. And what are the big things that people have learnt when they've gone out with you for the day?
Well, I try to focus on like the 5 or 6 key points, that the core carp angling skills that if one of them's out will stop you catching. So if you can keep all these sort of 5, 6 core things correct, then the rest will come to you. You know.
Yeah. So what are they? What are these core
location
things?
is key. You can't catch. You can't catch if they're not in front of you.
Yep.
Then you've got to present something they want to eat, which is a bait, a good bait.
Right. So choosing the right bait.
The right bait for the situation.
And how often do people get it wrong?
All the time.
Right.
All the time. You know, look, I get it wrong at times, you know, but it's getting it wrong less often, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
And what else?
Delivering that bait to a location where the carp can get it in, as in the spot.
Right.
And then it has to be delivered on a rig that's going to be prone to not tangling.
Yeah.
So efficient.
Yep.
And the hook and bait size balanced. And just basically, then you've got the main components to catch carp.
Right, so all the things that we take for granted,
Yeah.
that people are obviously missing by a mile,
Yeah,
again and again and again.
Yeah, it's the consistency of getting it right, just managing your rig in a way that you know that it's operating in the way you want it to,
Right.
and rather than getting your head fixated in things that aren't really
Loops
important.
and
loops and hinges.
hinges and all that sort
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah.
So basic stuff that's going to get you loads of bites.
Yeah.
And what sort of things have happened when you've been doing it? What sort of catches have happened?
We've had probably 3 20 fish in a day, catches, like
Right.
in 12 hours and 24s. Thorpe Lee's prolific, you know, we've had good days spotting over zigs there.
Right.
Manor Farm, Biggleswade, we've had sort of catches of 20 fish with a few 20-pounders thrown in.
What,